see. Okay. You do this on. Thanks for introducing me, Melinda. So I'm going to start today by having each of you, I know, can everybody hear me? Okay, great. Each of you introduce yourself, what organization you are from, and what who you serve from the organization. Yes.
I'm Shireen, Rajaram, and I'm a faculty at the University-Omaha Center. My background is sociology, and I'm and the population I serve is predominantly underserved populations, mainly racial ethnic minorities, and some of the work that I've been doing is on domestic violence, also police and partner violence, with the community, the keynotes, and especially the keynotes who have been undocumented, who have been undocumented, and other work I do is sex trafficking and human trafficking.
My name is Brent, Comstock, and I am from rural southeastern Nebraska, and I'm representing young entrepreneurs, young tech entrepreneurs, and also rural economic development, and started a series of ventures, most notably one of our technology companies based in Auburn, Nebraska. And today I'm here to share ideas about youth engagement development and how to keep young minds in rural communities.
Well, my name is Vranes-Art, and I'm a Catholic school librarian at Vranes-Art Catholic School. I'm also an art collector who collects street art from all over the world. We also are doing a project called Moderator, which is offering free art to anyone who finds it, so like us on Moderator on Facebook. And I also am a writer, and I have an article in Library magazine, so you have to pick it up. And I also did art reviews for the paper.
Hi, I'm Micki from Dietrich-Omaha. I'm our community engagement and outreach coordinator. A lot of my work centers around engaging with community organizations to help them do better at what they do, and around supporting neighborhood associations and other sort of grassroots activities.
Hi, I'm Brian Smith. I am a consultant and contractor. I work typically with strategy design, with organizational design, with kind of more conceptual pieces of business. I'm best known as locally as the curator for TEDxOmaha. So if you're familiar with TED Talks, TED programming, in 2009 they launched a program for local events, and this is our 6th year. This was essentially the connection that I have in the community is with people who are curious about the future, things that are happening on the fringes and how those come into their own lives. So I kind of serve as this liaison between people who are here and they're in Omaha and feel like they don't have people in their lives who can have those conversations, but also then the global TED community that is actively pursuing those ideas worth spreading. And so my role is to really create that connection between the local and the global.
So, in other words, that's your impetus to act, right?
Yeah, this act is actually very selfish.
Yes, exactly. So my second question here is about this panel. So it's about the impetus to act and what that means to each of you, and if you have an example of what you do or story. So as most of you probably in this audience are librarians, so and librarians love to connect people to people or connect people to information or what have you. Like I can't help myself, so I'm always inserting. So if you're looking for something, I'm puzzled, even if I have to think about it for days, weeks, a year, I might contact you a year later and say, guess what, I found that for you. So I kind of would love to hear your story about what that means to you personally and for your organization and an example. Okay, Laura.
So, yeah, I know last minute's up, but awesome.
And thank you for that.
We are starting yes, I'm a Catholic school librarian, but our real passion has become this art. We collect art and we collect street art. And like you kind of got the street art and icing tagging and that's bad. So my mission is to educate people about street art one person at a time, and it is not a bad thing. And people get this misconception like, yeah, tagging is bad, but that's not what street art is. So let me give you a quick definition of what is street art. It is kind of a cross between pop and graffiti with a political or social twist. And so we have that all over our house, and it's amazing. And connecting young people to it, and showing them how amazing art is. So we decided to do art and found our project, which is Adopt Art Omaha, where people can find free art and see how amazing art is. So we have a lot of street artists who are doing little dogs. They're basing our dog Banksy. He's adorable. And it's a way for people to connect with art and seeing how beautiful and amazing art is, and how street art can change perceptions and can change opinions.
So the Impetus to Act is very relevant within academia. I live in, and in some ways in academia, we get to be a little bit removed from the community. And so for us, it's very important to reach out and to have community engagement and work with people, especially within some of the work that we do where we so-called study people in underserved communities. And so part of our work is then to work closely with underserved communities, but not necessarily just as people from whom you gather data, but with people with whom you collaborate with very closely at every step of the research process. And we have a program for it called community-based participatory research from CPR. But the key there is participatory, where you bring in community members right from day one. We try to figure out what's important to the community, because we need to be doing research that's relevant and beneficial to the community, and not necessarily things that we think they should be doing. And so to do that, we need to reach out to our partners and working closely with them. You build capacity in the community, whether it's trying to figure out what the topic is, how to figure out what the assets are in the community, how to mobilize, community mobilizing, etc. And so ultimately, the aim, hopefully, with some of the research that we do is to have action within the community and from the community, and not necessarily us pushing the community to do A, B, and C. And so I see that as a very relevant piece of the work that we do, especially in the College of Public Health, and especially kind of sociology, and some of the work that I do with underserved populations and women who are experiencing domestic violence, and women who are undocumented and experiencing domestic violence, and who also may not necessarily have an education or any other kind of job skills, work skills, etc. You have a multiple level of social isolation happening, and they may not necessarily be aware of the amazing resources that we have in the community. And my work very closely is with community-based organizations. We work from J1, Justice for Our Neighbors. The other ones are acronyms in my head. WCA Women's Center for Advancement, Catholic Charities, the one named Eco Center and stuff. And so we work closely with them. But it's important for us then to reach out into the community so they know what resources are available. And there's like a special visa actually that women who are documented can avail themselves of, called a new visa, which puts them on track to get permanent residency to become a citizen, etc. And so the point here being that they are resources for the community, but unless we reach out and act together with the community, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, so I'll go next. Everything that I'm here for today is bringing innovative opportunities to populations that might be underserved, that aren't typically thought about, like bringing tech companies to rural communities. And that was true for me growing up in junior high and high school. I heard time and time again that you have to go far away to achieve greatness. You have to go far away. You're an honorable student on the rural Nebraska public school systems. That means you're a rocket scientist. I don't know where that came from, but people told me time and time again, you have to go away to create something new. And fortunately for me, the startup communities of Lincoln and Omaha were developing during the time that I was in high school, so that was great, but it's still away. It was still about an hour and a half drive to get to those locations. And so everything that we're working on now is creating, from the experience we have from my company, Southeast Nebraska, is bringing those innovative opportunities to rural communities and having access to information, whether it be through physical information, digital information. Those are the kinds of things that made it possible for someone to start a company that now employs several people and has an office at the age of 12. And so those are kind of the things that we're passionate about, and those are the ways in which we're looking to act is to change the rural communities through engaging with young people in new ways.
So I had been a TED fan fairly early. They started releasing videos in 2006, and I saw these amazing people doing the same thing. I talked about this amazing work they did, and I've always been a person who's kind of focused on the horizon. These things are amazing, but they're not my life. How do I bring that here? How do I bring that experience? How do I find people? And for a while, I felt pretty isolated. That I was the only one who liked these things. I didn't have anybody in my life to talk to. In 2009, I was part of an organization that was celebrating its 10th anniversary, and they said, so we work with UNMC, we work with UNL, we work with Brent, we work with all these kind of pillars of the community. What can we do to support them since they support us? What can we do to give back? And I said, well, I think that TED is doing these local events. And my CEO said, okay, what's TED? I explained it, and she said, great, figure it out. And that was my impetus to act, because if somebody said the 3 words to me, which was figure it out, and that really was the call to action that I needed to engage with this big, this global community of people out there who I didn't have any connection to, but through asking, through investigating, I've been able to support people in our community and really meet a lot of very fascinating people. Amy was one of our early adopters who came to our first event, and I kind of look at the photos that have been taken over the last 6 years, and I recognize so many people in the community who've been interested and excited about this format. They can be short conversations that have impact and have expanding properties, which is really what I think is important about TED in general. It provides a platform for us to think wider, think deeper, and think differently about the world. And so with 3 words, when somebody said, go figure it out, I got that push that I needed to commit that.
To me, it's all about finding that little push to get overcome. As I mentioned before, a lot of the work I have done my career has kind of centered around community organizations who are doing good in Omaha already. The Omaha Public Library has a mandate in our strategic plan, which came from the community, to try to make Omaha a better place. And one of the ways we do that is supporting other organizations and their work. We have a group of really wonderful facilitators, community facilitators, who work with organizations like Young Stuff for Due Space. I've seen Rebecca's coming here. We work with MAPA, and we're going to be starting a project with UNMC and the Nebraska AIDS Project soon to help them achieve their goals through having a facilitated conversation and coming up with action steps and such. So I think within all of us there is a spark. There is something that will spark all of you to act, and you just have to seek that out.
Thank you, Micki. So, in thinking about each of your organizations, that we're all faced with challenges, and we also have celebrations. So I'd like to kind of hear about what your organization does really well and what your current challenges are.
I think that the challenge is essentially finding enough time to reach out and to make connections with the community and with people, because it's about building trust, and trust doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, and you need to, as our previous panel they talk about, space time, you need to show up, you need to be there for things that are important to them, not necessarily that are important to you, and all of that takes a lot of time. And then within the structure in which I operate, that does not necessarily give you points. That makes sense, right? Ultimately, academically, you get your nice grants and you do your publications, you get the point, but if you're spending time building trust, is that kind of invisible piece that needs to happen somehow, like maybe when you're sleeping, whatever. And so that might be one of the challenges. And the good part of our organization, I think this is good for public health, is we have public in public health, right? And so it behooves us in public health to be reaching out. Not all of us do it, because some of us do straight statistics using data that already exists, census data, etc. But it behooves us as an entity within UNMC to be reaching out and to try to make a difference. And if I can get speaking on people here, I don't know if any of you have read what's going on. Pedagogy of the Oppressed by Paulo Freire, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, and he's a Brazilian scholar, and he talks about how education, or basically information, is essentially emancipatory, and by that it means that it gives people the knowledge and the tools to take control of their life so that they can move forward to do something. Yeah, I encourage you to read that book. It's a little bit dense, but it's exciting, and so we try and see that as our push to take knowledge and to take information and to make it action-oriented. Again, coming from the people, so bring the knowledge to the people, not in the sense of like filling an empty spot, but by working closely with people, so that together with your respective strengths, academic strengths, community strengths, etc., we're able to create a better world. Pedagogy of the Oppressed. And it's Paulo, P-A-U-L-O, maybe Freire, as in F-R-I-E-R-E. If you just Google Pedagogy of the Oppressed, you're going to get it.
So I'll speak a little bit about rural entrepreneurship in general and kind of fuse in our company's examples in it. But I'll start with the successes that we've had. Number one is that being based in a rural community, and I'll talk about the challenge then too, but we've had a lot of success in the fact that we're new, we're kind of a breath of fresh air in rural communities in general, but this also applies to stressed populations as well. When you have young ideas and new ideas come in, there's a sense of purity about them. And if we're able to deliver a certain skill, and if we're able to bring something to the table, there are populations that are seeing, wow, this is something new for our community. In rural communities, you typically see people reaching the height of their career when they're in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, and they either stay in the area, they retire, and never leave there. The idea of someone coming in when they're 20, 21 years old, and starting a company in a rural community is like, where did you get kicked out of before? And so it's almost the element of surprise that gets people a little bit, and I think that pertains to also accessing information from this event as well, is that sometimes reaching out to younger audiences or audiences that have less experience might be seen as a downside, but it's also definitely an upside in the sense that you get that pure, holistic opinion. Then there's a challenge of it in the fact that, when you're a young entrepreneur and contract law says you can't sign an agreement until you're 19, you start coming in 12. Well, you do a lot of things that you don't tell the government about. But anyway, is this being recorded? But on a serious note, the challenge of building something in a rural community, I'm not going to just focus on entrepreneurship because I think that doesn't apply to necessarily here, but the challenge of building something in a rural community or in a community where it doesn't exist already, you would think that, in business class, we would say, it's a monopoly. We're immediately going to be successful. But time and time again with our company, we're not competing against other companies, we're competing against ourselves and the element of not having it before. And so, how do you encourage and how do you push people to do something that they feel like they went so long without, and they are all, we've survived. And it's like, that's the difference between just scraping by and actually reaching a peak in whether it's your career, your organization, or something else. And so that's what we're working on now with this rural engagement program is how do you change that attitude and that culture of going above and beyond and not going to live without the suite of people in that community.
Well, obviously I don't have a foundation or anything like that, but I'm more of an art advocate, so that's how I'm coming, that's the point of view I'm kind of taking. And so the biggest challenge in the arts in Omaha really unfortunate. A lot of our artists are going to Chicago or they're going to, LA, where they can make more money and there's more exposure. Although we have an amazing arts community here in Omaha, that's probably one of our biggest challenges. So if I'm an elementary school teacher, how many of you have ever been to an art opening? Raise your hand. So the rest of you need your assignment. First Friday is coming up, and we have a great First Friday. Go to an art opening. Support these artists. That's why we're doing this Adopt Art Omaha. We want to support these artists and say, these artists are amazing. Look at their work. Let's not let them leave Omaha because they're awesome and we want to support them, and Omaha is a great community for that. So that's probably one of the biggest challenges in the art community. Some of the great strides we've made, our community is getting strong, it's getting vibrant, we're gaining a lot of artists too, and we want them to stay. So that's it.
Hard to follow up on that. Given out the sign. I think the Omaha Public Library, it's the biggest thing that we have going for us is that public libraries in general across this country have always been that third place that everyone can go. It's open to everyone and that is welcoming to every kind of person and has something for everyone. The hardest thing in Omaha is that there are so many needs that we cannot meet right at this moment. There's so many things that we wish we could be doing, that we could be doing better, that we can't meet for, budgetary reasons or staffing reasons. And it's hard to see things happening in Omaha that we can't be a part of.
So for me, I think the challenges and the successes are really wrapped up in the same issue. You've heard some of the other panels talk about people leaving Omaha and not knowing that opportunities exist. For us, what I'm doing is creating my own tiny little section of the library in TED's big collection. So if you go to the TED website, look at videos, there are over 2,000 videos now that they've been able to produce since 1984, but really the majority of those have come from the last few years. The TEDx program is growing exponentially. Right now, there are, I think, about 60,000 videos from TEDx events all over the world. There are an average of 8 per day. We have 1 per year here. And the amazing thing is that I get a room of 500 people together, and they all come away saying the same thing, which is, I didn't know these people existed. I didn't know this was in my own community. This is astounding. We have several people in our group spoken at another TEDx event here, TEDx-UNO. And so I know you've had that same experience because there's that opportunity to say, to share that story of what your work, of your research, of your experience, your idea of what's spreading. And I think one of the things that happens in the Midwest in general is we don't feel like we have ideas worth spreading. We don't feel like we should talk about ourselves and the work that we do. That's right. But we've got, but on the flip side of it, I have, in a month I have 9 people who are going to be on the stage to tell their stories. And so that for me every year, it's a feeling of accomplishment because I can take these stories and basically put a spotlight on those people, so that they have the ability to say, to say what's on their minds, but also what's meaningful in a community context. We have that room of 500 people could also be video, so that we have the ability to share that with the world. So we've had stories about growing up with a parent who has autism. We've had stories of people who have started nonprofit organizations serving the homeless with skateboarders. Take one disenfranchised group, another disenfranchised group, and put it together. We have stories coming up this next month from people who live in Omaha that are originally from Nepal and Zimbabwe. And did you know that here we have 5,000 people from Nepal who live in Omaha, which was a revelation to me. I did not have any idea. We talk about the 20,000 Sudanese refugees. We talk about who were refugees in the 90s. But we talk, Nebraska has this, and Omaha in specific has immense talent. One of the things that's a challenge sometimes for me is to get those people to stand up and say, I can tell my story. I'm an expert in that one thing. I don't have to be an expert in the global sense. I don't need to be somebody who is leading cancer research via DNA manipulation. But it's that story that you have that you can share to somebody else that makes a difference to them in their lives. But then also turning that mirror back around to say, you also have that story and you can come forward to share it. That's one of the big challenges I have.
Thank you, Brian. Hold on 1 second.
Just wanted to add about success story. In your question, it's amazing some of the work that people in our college are doing, reaching out to the community, here working with migrant home workers, there are for Moderator in the next panel, and Denise, and she does amazing work with health literacy across the state, and we work with farmers, farmers who are too busy and they don't necessarily have the resources to access information for their health, and their health is at risk, especially with some of the work that they do and stuff. And so our college we just out some research to community, etc. to try and work with people in this project. The other point I wanted to make is what struck me here is connection is a piece of building communities, because some of what we're saying is to work with build communities, just connect with each other, like tell the story, building communities, and to businesses, building the economic stability within the local communities, etc. And for us in health, what happens is when you have communities that are what we call upstream, kind of broken and lack of resources and lack of connection and fragmentation that's going on, ultimately downstream it results in what we call health disparities, or the lack of resources, the lack of access to health resources, etc. And so I think the issue of building communities, strengthening communities, especially in our technologically oriented society where we have amazing abilities to connect with each other. But having said that, we also have people then who are shut out from access to technology, and then they keep slipping lower and lower, so not everybody might have access to computers, etc. And to the point of libraries, that is so amazingly important. I also work with homeless youth, and sometimes that's the only place that they get to go. Through the library, to go in there, like check out Facebook and stuff, and that's the one thing, especially if they're kind of entrepreneurs, to be there in somewhat of the same place. And so these pieces that we have in our community, even though they seem fragmented, are amazingly important in creating the stability and in fact kind of holds apart and depression, the mental health, physical health, etc. happen, and they land up in clinical medicine and in public health. We try and work with prevention, and so see those connections.
I have one last question for everyone. On my podcast, Whatever Matters, at the end of our little segment, I always do like a big love, kind of like, what's your big love right now? So, and with your big love, that's sort of like what inspires you, who inspires you, what organization inspires you, what have you been thinking about? And I'll just start it off, but I'm super inspired by today's keynote speaker, Alice. I'm just thinking about the stories and the way that we talk about how connecting people with information is through stories and through community. And I love that idea. And she, her whole bit has got me just thinking and thinking and thinking. So, and I think today is all about stories. And Brian, you kind of really honed that in with your TED, your passion about TEDx. But I'd love to hear about each of what inspires you, organization, person, book, whatever it may be, your big love.
For me, social justice is what really drives me. We underline social justice based on being sociology. Social sociologist, that's great because it's a great alignment between work and what I believe in. And so sometimes work does not really work, that's fun. And the issue of social justice in making sure we reach out to people who are underserved and provide opportunities for them so that they are able to attain their highest potential. Okay, so they're able to attain their highest levels of capability. So not everybody necessarily is going to be equal, so to speak, because there's some people who don't have access to better resources and others not. But if we are able to work with groups of people in a collaborative way to make sure that their lives are better, so we can avoid some of the issues that exist in society within a structural point of view, but to avoid or to improve some of the avoidable issues that exist in community that would allow people to lead better lives, to have better health, to have access to better resources, whether it's something as basic as a minimum wage, or access to health care, or access to a party, etc. That's kind of what drives me, social justice.
A few weeks ago, I was sitting with, actually this might have been months ago, I was sitting with someone from the Benson Area Refugee Task Force and someone from a neighborhood initiative, and we started talking about big dreams. This woman from the Benson Area Task Force Benson Area Refugee Task Force had a big dream to open a housing development for refugees, and we started talking about, who else has big dreams in Omaha, and there are a lot of, sometimes we joke, there's a lot of organizations in Omaha doing a lot of things in a lot of different silos. How can we bring all these organizations together to share their dreams, to make a collective impact? Every single little organization can do only so much by themselves. How can we build a community to make collective impact? And I've sort of been thinking about that, how the Omaha Public Library can be part of doing something like that. I'm inspired by your dreams, so tell me what your dreams are, and I'll try to connect with somebody else who had dreams.
My dreams. So I'm really inspired by a lot of the things that changes on a daily basis. But what I'm really inspired by at this point in my life, 20 years, is people who are disrupting the market, an industry, a sector, organization. Whether it's for good or sometimes people see it as not good, the ability to go in and disrupt and make that change takes a lot of gut. And I think at the end of this entire discussion, there's one common thread, and it's people. And people coming together in a community. And it's interesting to see the intersections of all those. Like, I had the opportunity last year to speak at TEDx Lincoln, and this year, in a rural community, a TEDx event. But I have more people in Dietrich-Omaha in town. But what we are doing is we are having a watch party, a viewing party of TEDx Lincoln, because they stream it live in our office. We're bringing together people in the community sense. Same thing with our team. We have team members spread throughout the country, but the people collectively is what makes the change happen. We live in a society where technology is so exciting and so great. We're in a technology sector where more is greater and bigger and better. But at the end of the day, it all comes still back down to people and human interactions. And I think it's interesting to see how we've, both in the rural spaces and just as difference makers here, have been able to use as a kind of bad term, but we're able to match our skills and personalities with different people to make a change in whatever space, whether public health or some other space, and that's what inspires me.
People who love the system inspire me. I know being a Catholic school librarian, that probably credits a lot of you, but it challenges you. It makes you think, and that's what I love, and that's my draw from the street art. Another person who inspires me is Brigitte Luchu. You know who she is. She's amazing. She is in charge of the Union for Contemporary Arts, and she helps rural Omaha, especially with just kind of an underserved population there within the arts community. As we see in the arts, Detroit is very white, but the arts is starting to move in, and Detroit is actually turning. It's one of the top cities to live if you're an artist. So art does change lives, and I guess that's my big thing. I love art, and I think it can help the community greatly.
My current fascination is with human behavior and brain. I was just I love the fact that this thing sits up here and makes us believe that we are autonomous, that there's so much that's controlled by our biology, by the chemicals that are inside of us, by the bacteria that are inside of us, and the more that I learn about how we react to change, the deeper I get. My big tagline right now is normalize change. And it's fun because on a logical level, we'll go back to the brain here again. On a logical level, we understand that change is a constant part of what we experience. It's why we're not in third grade anymore. It's why we're here today. Today is a change. We're here to explore these ideas. But then the brain also has this emotional side that screams, I don't want it. I don't want change. I don't want this thing to move. I'm comfortable where I'm at. I have predictability. And we have not only this reaction and this battle that's going on inside ourselves, but also in our communities, in our cities, in our corporations, in our political systems, in the way that we think about the world. And so, to me, I think I keep going back to this internal fight that everybody experiences, and this level of conflict. It's kind of that area where it gives you, conflict really provides you the opportunity to grow and to find out what your capabilities are and to find out what you can do to influence a situation or a person. And so, yeah, Daniel Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast and Slow, was a fantastic book. It took me 6 months to read it the first time, which is dedication. And I read it a second time through because I wanted to make sure that I understood how does it describe the systems in the brain, and how do they influence our behavior on a daily basis.
Thank you, Brian. So I'd like to open it up for questions, and I'll try to fill Donahue in. Brian.
You're more of a Sally Jesse, right?
I think my question is mostly directed at you, Brent. As facilitators and educators, what can we do to encourage youth, particularly in STEM fields or sequential learning?
Yeah, so it's interesting. There's a breakdown between a few things. Number one is the perception of youth by adults and the perception of adults by youth. And in rural communities, what we hear all the time is, oh, those young people are just Facebook addicts who don't do anything. And then from the young people, we hear all these old people just want to get rid of us and start leaving the community. One of the things that I find very interesting is the power of titles, labels, and names. The word intern is demeaning. There's a recent study that came out, I think it's like 64% of students who are looking for opportunities that are internships aren't actually looking, when they see the word intern, they immediately think that they're not going to get to do as much. Specifically in the STEM sectors, being involved in hands-on work is like very riveting to young people. That's what they want. When they see that they're an intern, they immediately have this negative connotations in it, employee, or the words entry level. And so, number one thing that I think is very easy to fix is just the way in which the wording and the message is conveyed, and really make sure that the message you're conveying when you're reaching out to these students is empowering in the sense of you're actually showing them. It's not a title you would ask a 40-year-old male or female to apply for your internship, and they might not have much experience. But that's one thing that I think is unique that not a lot of people think about. You hear it a lot with a lot of companies say, oh, we got rid of the word intern because it's demeaning, but it's also scientifically demeaning. And then the other thing that I would say is really establishing something that engages them beyond just a specific project that they can see the large picture. I know for me, what was important to me was seeing how our company played a role in the community, and that's what invested me to stay in this area. I could have easily packed up and moved on and never came back. But ultimately, seeing how my studies and my business played a role in the community was very important. So if you can marry community with whatever research or projects or physical work that you're doing in that sector, I think they'll have not only an appreciation for what they're doing, but they'll have an appreciation for the role that it plays in the community. Because we think that oh, they get it, they should understand it, but they will tell you, explicitly tell them, they might not understand it because it's might be the first, second, or maybe it's the fifth opportunity that you have, it's the first one they've really been moved to push them forward.
First of all, I'm very happy for coming today, so thank you all. I love the diversity and the range, and I have specific questions for all of you, and I can't do that. But I think with my social justice hat, I went to Vermont to go to a very focused social justice graduate program and to learn the amazing resources and accessibility to that here. I keep learning that Omaha is an amazing place, and there's all of this creativity and all of this impetus to act, to get people who don't have that outlet. And Ruth, you know, is my good friend, that's going to be in today. But the biggest question that I have from hearing all of your just really intriguing and wonderful action that you're doing is there's still major issues going on in Omaha where, you know, the death toll and issues where I'm just so perplexed because we have such an accessible community, but yet it's totally inaccessible for happiness for some people. And just with, you know, we're in this environment today, in this space of such diversity and ideas and fruitfulness, how do you see that? You know, there's such good, but there's some really incredibly bad things happening that affect, you know, selected communities and all of us together at once. So how do you see that impetus to change, that collective idea, just put an elephant in the room that yes, there's all this brilliant creativity, but there's still a loss of life that's happening on almost a daily basis.
That's a very good point. Because I think people who visit Omaha from, you know, other places, and recently had a speaker from London come in and just debate. And I don't know everybody knows and so we're in many ways, we're very talented. Omaha has basically gotten to the place and that's amazing well and it's willing to give to the community. But at the same time, we're also very segregated, right? We have huge levels of inequality and we're very segregated in terms of social class, in terms of race and ethnicity and stuff, and particularly within the Omaha area, but it's also happening within pockets in rural Nebraska, with refugees coming in and stuff. And so I think that's one of the challenges that we have to face is to how do we then go past the segregation that because of geographical segregation and how we create sustained community engagement. And I think that's what we're seeing right now, the sustained community engagement where we move beyond our comfort zone, you know, move beyond the web of 42nd Street to 72nd Street line in there, and then reach out in a meaningful way with people who are connected into the community, etc., to figure out what are the priorities of the community and what change happen and go with the community. Because sometimes people get frustrated that because of the historic lack of trust, you know, whether it's the classism and the racism and the sexism that has happened historically, that people are not willing to come to the table. So you might have hopes, right, and nobody shows up. But then maintaining that sustained community engagement and showing up day after day after day and trying to work closely with people. And it's amazing how trustful people can be. I mean, people are very open. It doesn't matter what the social class or the racial or the ethnic background in our Nebraska community, you know, they will ultimately trust you. It doesn't really matter what background you have. You don't necessarily have to look like them or speak their language, etc. Ultimately, they will trust you. But that's the big crux in there. Okay, the trust piece, and the only way we get that trust is to sustain community engagement. In the previous panel, we talked about being open about your agenda. You know, so what is your agenda? We're academics, so what's your agenda? Well, we don't need to publish, and we don't need to get grants, and so we have to send out to the table. But, okay, moving beyond that, how can we now work together and what are pieces of overlap or common ground that we can create to move forward? And in some ways, it's very basic. It's mostly associated with communication and building trust and working together. But to do it is very, very difficult and challenging. But But I think it just takes time and working with people and being willing to speak out if you see a sort of injustice happening, a lack of power, that exploitation is happening just within a relationship. Even, and I think ultimately we will be able to. So we're getting there, but not there as yet, but in some ways we have all the amazing pieces just sitting there, but we do have huge inequalities happening and huge health disparities. And health disparities, as I said, are just a reflection of the existing inequalities that exist in society.
I echo it. I mean, I feel like you said exactly what I've always wanted to say in like a way better way than I have ever said it. I kind of joke about this before, but Omaha is great about stepping up. You know, we are great about, you know, if you see something happening, you form an organization to deal with the thing that is happening. And we work in such silos. Everyone's doing good work, but they're doing good work alone. I think the most important thing that we should be doing now is talking to each other and building relationships and figuring out how we can work together to make that collective impact, because we cannot do it alone. The public library would love to, you know, change the socioeconomic conditions of people in Omaha. We'd love to give everyone the same educational chances that everybody else gets, but we can't do that alone. We're just one organization. And everybody's just one organization. You know, we have to find a way to work together and have those conversations.
To piggyback off of what you were just talking about, one thing, I'm from Omaha Public Schools. I work in the Library Services Department, and one opportunity I had this summer got me thinking about how we do very much operate in silos, and we aren't aware of all of the agencies that are available to support people in the community. And one thing that kind of sparked my thinking was we talk so much about how kids have access to technology today. No, they don't all. And we have a very, very high poverty rate in our district, incredibly high. You may see a student walking around with an iPhone, but that doesn't mean it's connected to anything. So how do we get the resources that we have into the opportunities of those students once they leave our buildings? How do their parents have access to those things? How do they know about those things? So my idea was to put together a list of community agencies and organizations where they could go maybe outside of the public library because they don't always have transportation. It's not necessarily within walking distance or close to their homes. Different organizations where they have access to the internet for free. But then taking that one step further and thinking about all of the things that people have been talking about today, health, legal services, all of those things. If we could go to one location and have that listed and cross-referenced, you can say, okay, cool, in this part of town, what's available to me? Or I'm looking for free internet access. Here's a list of all the places where you have free internet access. Or maybe I'm looking to volunteer. Here are volunteer opportunities in the arts, or here are volunteer opportunities with different types of organizations. Because I know it's really hard for me to find somewhere where I could volunteer with my 7-year-old daughter. That is not listed anywhere. You can't find that. So if someone would like to give somebody a big buck of money so that someone could put a list like that together, so that if you're in an agency or a group, you can pull that information and say, okay, this is the need you have. Here's the other places you can go to get it. Because they may walk into your office and never walk into anybody else's. So you have access to all of that as well. And that may be something that your community group does through the public library. When you look at all those organizations, I don't know if something like that exists.
We do have some lists of some things like cancel courses, but I want to challenge you to say a list is only so useful.
It is, right. It's a starting point.
Yeah, it is a starting point, but to me, the more important thing is building relationships between organizations, so we're not duplicating services, so we're not, you know, unaware anymore. To me, it's so much more about building relationships because, I mean, there's studies out there, nobody reads signs or pamphlets or lists. They're much more likely to act upon the recommendation, a personal recommendation from somebody, rather than, oh, I found this person in the local company.
But I can't personally recommend you if I don't really exist.
Exactly, so we have to have a venue to have conversations about what we do and what our dreams are and, you know, what we can do for people. But that's so typical. This is the first step though, so you've all heard that I want to hear about your dreams.
This is true.
Take action on that.
I think, I love that this is called Impetus to Act, but I think many of us in this room probably got into the business that we're in because we already had an impetus to act on some level. But I love that you're all here and telling these stories, and again, we're going back to storytelling because sometimes, now that I'm entering more of a mid-career place in my life, it's more like impetus to persevere. You know, you've acted and you've acted and you've acted, and you know, there are barriers to some of the things that we're trying to accomplish, which you guys have all, you know, touched on. But I think maybe that would be an interesting part 2, information exchange on how to, you know. But really, I mean, because a lot of times those things are very difficult. We have wonderful intentions, and trying to make them come to fruition is so difficult. Anyway, but a quick follow-up for Brent. I was not aware about internships being not a nice way to say that. So what would you offer as an alternative way to encourage, you know, if we have those kinds of opportunities for young people, what's a better way to advertise them?
Well, yeah, I would say that in advertising, the problem is that young people also don't know that it's derogatory to them. But when you think about interns and you ask them if they want to do an internship, specifically in smaller communities or in larger corporations, you know, I have lots of friends that grew up in cities around the country, and they say, yeah, I interned, and I say, well, what did you get to do? And I'm like, well, I filled coffee and I did this and that. One example was the role that the intern played in an office setting. I heard this 2 weeks ago from one of my friends who also has this belief and showed me the study about interns and said that he had an intern, and I don't remember what her name was, our intern this summer. Her name was Julia Slicer, for example. But when we called Julia and this is a true story, so when we called Julia a member of our marketing team, or XYZ, they said, oh, you know, where do you go to school? What do you get when you guests are coming to the office? Those are the questions they would ask. And when they said, oh, this is Julia, she's our intern, one female and male group of business partners that came in said, oh, can we get a cup of coffee? And that just reaffirmed, and I don't know about that person, but that was our intern, it didn't happen ours, but I would say, in terms of advertising it, in the time period that we're in now, you still have to advertise as an internship. But calling them that and placing like on a business card or on a website, or if you're just calling them in the titles of, you know, oh, we introduce every member of our team, oh, and this is XYZ person, he or she is our follow intern. So that means that they're less skilled, less qualified, they're not going to be here for a longer amount of time. Usually on any list, they will always be listed last. And it's more of the mentality of, and we tell that to our interns when they come in, you know, we advertise for you to join the internship world, because if we said join us as a team member, they is that a full-time job, or what am I doing? It's like, you know, it's more of a life commitment, but once they join in, you know, we are a small enough team that we don't have time to worry about people being downgraded about their titles and their positions. And I think that's true outside of the intern scope. I think that's true for a lot of different things, is that we live in a corporate society where the ladder is always one step higher and higher and higher, and trying to get people off the ladder outside of the ladder, how it works.
There's a law firm here in Omaha, I forget what they term it, but it's like a summer partnership program. Their whole goal is to attract young people, talented young people from outside of Omaha and inside Omaha, with law students, to consider them as a future employer, consider them as a future home for themselves. And they go beyond that by not only just having them work and actually work on real cases, but they created a program where they videoed the whole thing. They put together a compilation at the end to show what fun it was. Well, in order to do that, they also take these people around Omaha and take a behind-the-scenes look on how the city works, how they engage as an attorney, as a law firm, what they do and why their particular firm is going to be a great choice for them culturally as they graduate law school and figure out where am I going to go work. I think that's, if we look at young people, it's a recruiting tool. It's not just a free labor source. If anybody in the room here has anything to do with human resources, please pay your interns. People, it's an insult when you expect somebody to work for free. As somebody who's, with TED, go back to this, one of the key points of this is that nobody gets paid. TED's a nonprofit. They don't pay speakers. Their staff actually works for nonprofit wages, which I think is an issue we also have to come up against. But with TEDx programs, your organizers don't get paid, speakers don't get paid, volunteers, it's all run out of an application out of love for this thing. Which is one thing if you are going to say, I would love to help, I'm going to give you my time. For a for-profit entity, even for non-profit entities to say, you're a student, you have, you want to crack into my industry, you have to work for free. I think is really an important way to treat people, and I think that there are definitely ways to create programs that help people value themselves and also value the organization and the community that they eventually join.
And one more, and then we'll.
I just want to say something. In our college, we have students, and I would agree with your point that pay them so they can pay the bills, right? But we have amazing development students, master's level and PhD level, and they are willing to work. Doesn't matter whether you pay them or not. I mean, it's amazing. We have some paid positions. We call them all kinds of stuff, and we call them interns, we call them graduates. Right? And because in many ways the job market is so tight, but also that they're really interested in applying their skills, they will volunteer. All I have to do is to put an email out and I'll get 10 students and I'll pay. Cannot pay. Sometimes we can't pay and we do pay them, we pay them decently, and sometimes we cannot pay them, so we stay unpaid. And it's amazing the level of talent. I've gotten like the absolute best students right now. I have amazing students who've got amazing quantitative skills, and I don't pay them a dime, but we say, look, we're going to be publishing and your name is going to be on it, so that's a career advancement for him. And so for people on the other side who work with students, I would actually encourage the students to go beyond labels. I get it, like labels and some stigma, it's not just something, but to go beyond the labels and to get as much opportunity as you possibly can, because this is the time where you can really kind of explore your possibilities, kind of build your resume, and stuff, and it go far. So I would push the young people to say, look, that sounds very nice. You should not be maybe just, fix copy that's normal. But if you're able to do some real skills, whatever the label in there, like push yourself and push the employer as well to say, maybe, etc. And so just to talk about our public control is basically absolutely. And you want to say something, but even before that, another comment is, so I heard about information exchange, etc. In all promotions, we have this saying, and it's kind of true, start where the people are, right? I mean, so do we have the people who we feel are underserved, who we feel are shut out of opportunity because they don't have transportation, they don't have money, etc. They're not represented, right? And so sometimes we sit here and we feel like we want to come up with ideas of how to create information idea and stuff. And so maybe figure out a way to reach out to people who have been in another study, but find a way to reach out to people and say, look, we think this is a great idea of what you think and what are mechanisms by which we can go about doing it. And there are community foundations in town that are very open and receptive to something like that, information exchange and building capacity on the community. And I'm sure they will be willing to fund people that kind of initial and pilot of how to build like information exchange stuff going. Because we don't have their voices at the table to sit here and try and figure out for them what needs to be done. That's where I'm trying to think.
I think